All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. You guys sent in some pretty interesting stuff this time.
Yeah.
Excerpts from The Great Bounty.
Oh, yeah.
By Dr. Khaled Waleed.
This is a fascinating one.
And boy, let me tell you.
Yeah.
We had some lively debates in our prep sessions about this one.
We did.
This text goes deep into some pretty serious Islamic theology.
It does.
Specifically,
Yeah.
how Dr. Waleed is interpreting Quranic verses about bounty favor and the relationship between Allah and different groups of people.
Yeah.
So buckle up,
because
he's drawing some pretty sharp distinctions.
he does.
Between the children of Israel and what he calls the enlightened being Arabs.
Yeah, no, this is definitely not your average everyday kind of interpretation here.
Right.
He really kind of turns things on its head.
Yeah.
The way that we typically think about these concepts.
Yeah.
He really kind of...
Like bounty and favor.
Yeah, like he argues that bounty is all about Allah's knowledge.
Okay.
As revealed in the Quran. And that true favor means getting deep into that knowledge.
So it's not about like material riches.
Right.
Or like worldly success.
Right.
Like we might think of it as...
It's not about those external trappings.
Yeah.
It's about something much more profound.
Okay.
Much more spiritual.
So like a really deep understanding.
Exactly.
Okay.
Aligning yourself with Allah's message. And truly like grasping its meaning.
Yeah, yeah.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
He argues that this favor, this deep understanding,
Okay.
is not primarily bestowed upon the children of Israel,
Right.
as is kind of the common belief.
Yeah.
Instead, he says it's the enlightened being Arabs
Whoa.
who are the true recipients.
Okay. That's a bold statement.
Oh, it is.
I mean, that's going to raise some eyebrows for sure.
Yeah, definitely not the mainstream perspective. But you know what?
Yeah.
It does tap into a long history of debate within Islamic tradition
Okay.
about,
Yeah.
who are the chosen people.
Right.
So he's not like, pulling this out of thin air. He's building on theological discussions that have been going on for centuries.
Right.
But his conclusions are definitely provocative.
Yeah. He's not shying away from controversy, that's for sure.
He's not.
He uses some specific Quranic verses
Yes.
to back up his arguments, right?
Oh, he cites chapter and verse.
Okay.
He's got, verses like Maryam 58, 59.
Okay.
And Nisa 69, which describe those who receive Allah's favor.
Okay.
In very specific terms.
Okay.
Talking about prostrating, weeping upon hearing his verses.
Okay.
The prophets, the steadfast, the martyrs, the righteous.
Yeah.
And he very pointedly identifies these figures with the enlightened being Arabs and not the children of Israel.
So he's building a case for a completely different understanding.
He is.
Of who holds this, privileged position in relation to Allah.
That's exactly right.
And to really kind of drive that point home, he even presents a very different take on the figure of Israel himself.
This is where it gets really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he suggests that Israel, mentioned in the Quran, isn't the prophet Jacob?
Right. Which is the common understanding.
The common understanding.
Yeah.
He's saying, no.
Yeah.
This Israel came before the children of Adam.
Okay, hold on. So he's saying that Israel was the first to deviate from Allah's path?
Yes.
Before Iblis.
Even before Iblis.
Okay, so he's like rewriting history here.
He's painting a picture of a separate lineage.
Okay.
With its own history.
Yeah.
Distinct from the traditional narrative.
Wow.
About the children of Israel.
That's good.
Gonna ruffle some feathers?
Oh, yeah. This alternative history ties directly into his repeated use of this accursed tree imagery.
Oh, yeah.
When he talks about the children of Israel.
Right.
And he connects them to Iblis, emphasizing this idea of straying from the right path.
Yeah.
Despite Allah's favor and warnings through prophets.
Right.
It's a pretty bleak picture he's painting.
Oh, it is. It is.
Right.
Think about the impact of that metaphor.
Yeah.
The accursed tree instantly evokes this idea of something corrupted, barren, dangerous even.
Right.
And he uses this powerful imagery throughout the whole text.
Okay.
To really kind of, underline the separation he sees.
Okay.
Between the children of Israel and the enlightened being Arabs.
So it's not just like a theological difference.
It's not just like he's making a stark moral distinction.
A moral distinction.
Yeah.
That's a really insightful point. I mean, it's not just what he's saying.
It's how he's saying it.
It's how he's saying it, yeah.
Right. That metaphor, that sticks with you. It makes you really visualize this division that he's arguing for. And then he takes that division even further by linking the Star of the Rock, mentioned in Surah Al-Isra 70, specifically to the enlightened being Arabs.
Right.
And declaring mega off-limits to the children of Israel.
Yeah.
It's like he's drawing a line in the sand.
He's saying, this is my side, this is your side, and that's it.
And this isn't just about some, abstract theological debate.
Yeah.
He's connecting his interpretations to concrete places, symbols that hold immense significance in Islam.
Right, right.
So he's rooting his arguments in the physical world, tying them to locations, to practices.
So he's using a combination of scriptural interpretation,
yes,
symbolic language.
Absolutely.
And even geography.
Geography, yeah.
To make his case.
To make his case. It's a multi-layered argument.
Yeah, multi-layered argument. But the big question is how much of this is truly a radical departure from Islamic thought, and how much of it actually resonates with other interpretations, even if they don't go as far as Dr. Waleed.
Exactly. That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And to really unpack that, we need to dig a little deeper into some of the specific concepts he uses to support his claims.
Let's do it.
Like, for example, he talks about levels of favor from Allah.
Ooh. Levels of favor.
That sounds pretty intriguing, right?
Yeah, let's unpack those levels of favor.
So when he talks about these, levels of favor, he's actually tapping into a concept that's been discussed by Islamic scholars for centuries.
It's not a new idea?
Not a brand new idea.
Oh, okay.
But his application of it is definitely unique.
Right.
He acknowledges that Allah bestowed favors upon the children of Israel, as mentioned in verses like Al-Jathiyah 16. But he argues that the enlightened, being Arabs, receive a greater, more lasting favor. Because they've upheld Allah's covenant.
So it's not that Allah's playing favorites.
Right.
In the sense of liking one group more than another.
It's not about a personal preference. It's about recognizing different levels of understanding, commitment, adherence to his message.
Oh, so almost like a teacher who might give different levels of responsibility to different students.
Exactly.
Based on their capabilities and how they've demonstrated their understanding of the material.
It's like, some students might get the extra credit assignments. Others might be entrusted with leading group projects or something like that.
Right.
It doesn't mean the teacher loves some students more.
Yeah.
It just means they're recognizing different levels of readiness, trustworthiness.
Okay. That's a great analogy. That makes it a lot easier to understand. But how does Dr. Waleed connect this idea to his broader argument about the children of Israel and the enlightened being Arabs?
He uses the story of Iblis, challenging Allah's favor towards Adam and his descendants, as described in Al-Isra 62, to illustrate his point. And he suggests that this challenge extends specifically to the enlightened being Arabs, while linking Iblis with the children of Israel.
Okay, so he's saying that the enlightened being Arabs are the ones who are truly carrying the torch of Adam's legacy, and the children of Israel have somehow
align themselves with the forces of Iblis. Rebellion and disobedience represented by Iblis.
So it's almost like a good versus evil kind of thing.
It's a very black and white view.
Chosen versus rejected. That's a
chosen versus rejected.
Pretty strong claim.
It is.
And this leads him to some pretty strong pronouncements about the consequences of choosing one path over the other.
Right. And he cites verses like Al-Baqarah 98, Al-Ma'idah 78, to claim that Allah's anger is directed towards the disbelieving children of Israel, whom he even associates with Gog and Magog.
Okay, so we're talking
those figures of chaos and destruction.
Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore.
No, we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
He's not just talking about, theological differences.
It's heavy stuff.
He's making judgments about entire groups of people.
Yeah.
And their ultimate fate.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that this is just one interpretation, one perspective within a vast and complex religious tradition.
Of course.
But it does raise some really important questions.
Like what?
Like, how do we reconcile these kinds of statements with the calls for interfaith dialogue and understanding that are so prevalent today.
Right.
How do we engage with interpretations that seem to contradict our own values or beliefs?
These are
tough questions.
Yeah, tough questions. But they're worth wrestling with. And I think Dr. Waleed himself would encourage that wrestling.
Absolutely.
I mean, remember, he's not just presenting his interpretation.
He's calling for
the one and only truth.
A more critical engagement with the Quran and its teachings. He wants his readers to question, to analyze, to think for themselves.
Yeah, he's saying, don't just take my word for it.
Yeah, don't just take my word for it.
Think about it.
Go back. Read the Quran.
Yeah.
Think critically. Come to your own conclusions.
It's a pretty bold move.
It is.
And I think this call for individual interpretation and critical thinking feels very relevant in today's world.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we are bombarded with information from all sides.
From all sides, yeah.
And it's more important than ever to be able to discern truth from falsehood.
Yeah, to think critically about what we're being told.
To think critically
Absolutely.
About what we're being told.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
You know his work. Whether you agree with his conclusions or not, reminds us that religious texts aren't static, unchanging things.
Yeah.
They're living documents
That
can be interpreted in different ways, depending on the historical context, the cultural lens, the individual reader's own understanding.
The diversity of interpretation, even within a single faith like Islam, is something to be acknowledged and respected, even if we don't always agree with those different perspectives.
It's through dialogue, respectful debate, a willingness to engage with different viewpoints that we can truly deepen our own understanding and appreciation for the richness and complexity of these traditions.
Dr. Waleed certainly given us a lot to think about. And speaking of giving us a lot to think about, he makes some very interesting points about the specific favors that Allah allegedly bestowed upon the children of Israel, even as he argues that those favors are ultimately superseded. But the favor given to the enlightened being Arabs, it seems like kind of a contradiction.
It does on the surface.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
But to understand his perspective, we have to dig a little deeper.
You got to dig a little deeper into how he interprets certain verses.
Okay.
For example, when he discusses verse Al-Jathiyah 16, which mentions Allah bestowing the scripture, judgment, prophethood, good things upon the children of Israel. He interprets this as Allah granting them knowledge and earthly power, but not direct communication or prophethood. He maintains that direct communication from Allah was reserved for the lineage of Adam, further elevating the status of the enlightened being Arab.
So even when acknowledging the favors given to the children of Israel, he's still finding ways to reinforce his argument?
He is. He's very consistent.
About the enlightened being Arabs, holding a more
privileged position.
Yeah, privileged position. It's a very subtle
but consistent.
Yeah, consistent line of reasoning.
It is.
That's the text.
He also repeatedly references the covenant that Allah made with humanity, specifically highlighting that the enlightened being Arabs have upheld this covenant while the children of Israel have strayed from it.
And he doesn't shy away from describing those consequences?
No, he does not.
I mean, remember that powerful accursed tree metaphor?
Oh, yeah, the accursed tree.
He uses that to paint a very bleak picture.
Yeah, associating them with Iblis. And his defiance of Allah. And he takes it even further by claiming that the children of Israel are enemies of Allah, his angels, including Gabriel and Michael, and his message.
So he's not messing around.
He cites Al-Baqarah 98 to support this.
Which is a verse that speaks of Allah being an enemy to disbelievers.
Yeah, he's drawing a hard line between belief and disbelief. Righteousness and transgression.
Right. So it makes you wonder how this kind of interpretation impacts like interfaith relations.
Absolutely.
And how we understand the relationship between different religious traditions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This perspective raises some challenging questions.
It's a reminder that even within a single faith, like Islam, there can be a vast spectrum of interpretations and beliefs. some of which might challenge our own assumptions.
Absolutely.
Or make us uncomfortable.
That's okay.
Right.
It's through engaging with these different perspectives.
Yeah.
Even the ones that make us squirm a little.
Yeah.
That we can really grow
right.
in our understanding of faith tradition and the human search for meaning.
Like that saying, if you're not learning, you're not living.
Exactly.
Dr. Waleed is definitely giving us a lot to learn about.
He is.
Even if it means challenging our own preconceived notions along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
No. Remember how Dr. Waleed talks about the enlightened being Arabs as the true inheritors of Allah's favor?
Yeah.
Well, he dives even deeper into what he means by that term. And it gets really interesting. So we've talked about how Dr. Waleed sees these enlightened being Arabs as the true recipients of Allah's favor. But what exactly makes them so enlightened in his view?
Well, he connects them directly to the lineage of Adam.
Okay.
Emphasizing their connection to the very origins of humanity.
Right.
And what he sees as their pure understanding of Allah's teachings.
That's about purity.
Yeah.
About staying true to, like, the original message.
Yeah. Like, he's saying they've retained a kind of primordial connection to Allah's message, uncorrupted by the deviations he attributes to the children of Israel.
But isn't that a bit subjective? I mean, who gets to decide?
That's a great question.
What the pure message actually is.
It gets to the heart of some of the debates surrounding interpretations of religious texts.
Right.
Dr. Waleed seems to be suggesting that the Quran itself holds the key to unlocking this pure understanding.
Okay.
And those who truly delve into its depths will find this enlightenment.
So it's not about blind faith or simply following tradition.
Yeah.
It's about actively engaging with the Quran and seeking a deeper understanding of its message.
Exactly.
It resonates with a lot of contemporary discussion about faith and role of individual interpretation.
Absolutely. It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it.
Right.
Go back to the source.
Read it yourself.
Read the Quran for yourself.
Yeah.
Draw your own conclusions.
That's a pretty empowering message.
It is.
But he also seems to be saying that there's a fire.
Right way.
And a wrong way to interpret the Quran.
Yeah.
Based on his own conclusions.
Based on his conclusions.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile those two ideas?
It's a delicate balance, for sure.
Yeah.
On the one hand, he's encouraging critical thinking, individual exploration. But on the other hand, he's presenting his own interpretations as the correct ones.
Right.
It highlights the tension that often exists between personal faith and established religious authority.
And speaking of authority, Dr. Waleed places a lot of emphasis on the Star of the Rock.
Yes.
Connecting it to the enlightened being Arabs and the sanctity of Mecca. Can you unpack that a little for us?
Sure.
What's the significance of the Star of the Rock and all of this?
The Star of the Rock is mentioned in Surah Al-Isra 70.
Okay.
And it's been interpreted in various ways throughout Islamic history.
Right.
Dr. Waleed sees it as a symbol of divine guidance and favor bestowed specifically upon the enlightened being Arabs.
By associating it with Mecca,
right,
the holiest site in Islam. He's further cementing this idea of a chosen lineage linked to a specific place and a specific way of understanding Allah's message.
It's almost like he's creating a spiritual map.
It is a spiritual map.
To guide his readers towards what he sees as the true path.
To enlightenment.
To enlightenment. It's a powerful way of communicating his ideas.
A powerful way.
He's weaving together scriptural interpretation, symbolic language, and even geography.
Geography to create a compelling narrative.
Yeah, compelling narrative. It's definitely a narrative that challenges traditional understandings of Islamic history and theology.
He's reinterpreting key figures.
Redefining concepts like bounty.
Redefining bounty and favor.
Favor.
Yeah.
Drawing some pretty stark lines between those he sees as righteous and those he sees as having strayed from the path.
And he's doing it all with a very clear purpose, to call his readers to what he sees as a purer, more authentic understanding of Islam.
Right. So he's urging them to shed inherited beliefs.
Shed those beliefs.
Engage with the Quran directly.
Yeah.
And think critically about their faith.
It's a bold approach.
It is. It's a provocative approach. And at the end of the day, isn't that what a deep dive is all about?
That's what it's all about.
Getting us to think critically.
To ask those tough questions.
Ask tough questions.
Yeah.
Engage with different perspectives.
Engage with different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Whether we agree with his conclusions or not.
Yeah.
He's given us a lot to chew on.
Yeah.
Challenged our assumptions. Introduced us to some fascinating interpretations.
Yeah.
Ultimately reminded us that the search for understanding is an ongoing journey.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Great Bounty, we're left with this. Dr. Waleed presents a unique and challenging perspective on Islamic theology, one that pushes back against traditional understandings and calls for a more engaged and critical approach to faith. It's a perspective that might make some uncomfortable, but it also offers an opportunity for reflection and growth. Absolutely. What resonates most with you? From this deep dive, what questions does it raise for you about interpreting religious texts and understanding different perspectives within a faith? Keep those questions in mind as you continue your own explorations. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.